Welcome to Franchise Marketing Radio, brought to you by SeoSamba. Comprehensive high-performing marketing solutions for mature and emerging franchise brands. To supercharge your franchise marketing, go to SeoSamba.com. That's SeoSamba.com.
Lee Cantor here, another episode of Franchise Marketing Radio, and this is going to be a good one. Today we have with us Brent Dowling with Raintree Sales. Welcome, Brent.
Thank you, Lee.
I am excited to learn about Raintree Sales. Tell us what you're up to. How are you serving folks?
Yeah, Raintree is a franchise sales organization or an outsourced franchise development company. Two ways of saying it, but effectively what we do is partner with franchise brands to help drive them through growing them by selling franchises for them. We take the burden of growth off their plate, allowing them to focus solely on taking the franchisees we send them, getting them open, getting them happy, getting them profitable, and growing a better brand. So we do that for 15 brands right now, soon to be 16 we'll announce soon, but we have an eclectic mix of brands, from some food brands to some service brands to some retail brands. And we've been doing it 8 years and have now sold over 2,000 franchises and going strong and having fun.
So how'd you get into this line of work?
I was working actually at the United Nations just over 10 years ago now, almost 11. I did a political science degree and thought I was going to be an Australian diplomat, and went and did that for a little bit, went and represented there. And long story short, it really wasn't what I thought it would be, and I had to kind of start from scratch. So I enrolled in an MBA, and while I was going through that, and I was doing that here from the States, I came across this little sector I'd never heard of in one of the courses called franchising, and I didn't really understand it. And then, you scratch the surface and learn that it's this quiet industry that's actually trillions of dollars worth that nobody really talks about, that touches everybody every day. And I thought that was fascinating. So another long story short, I took the first job I could find in the franchise space out here in Colorado. I took an entry-level part-time marketing job for a popcorn franchisor. And ended up partnering with my partner at Raintree now, Mike Edwards. He did the sales for that popcorn franchise. I did the marketing, and we took it from 5 to 300 in 3 years. And had a bunch of job offers at the time around other franchises sort of saying, hey, would you want to come and do that for us? And we realized we kind of worked pretty well together, and we'd figured some stuff out and thought, why do it for just one more brand? Why not help a number of brands at one time? And so fast forward 8 years, Raintree is where it is now.
And the way that you work is a little different than most other agencies. You're very much kind of part of the team, literally and financially, right?
Yeah. In a couple of brands, we bought the franchise rights. So we recently partnered with Voodoo as the franchisor. We came in and invested and acquired the majority of that. And have done the same with another brand called Kid Create Studio. For the rest of the brands, we put capital in by putting, we put about a 6-person team on every brand we partner with. And we're really only rewarded financially when we perform, when we bring franchisees. So there's certainly an investment from Raintree into a partnership. If it doesn't work out, we have something to lose too. And we like that model. We like that we're both in it together. But in the cases of Kid Create Studio and Voodoo Brewery, it was a full investment to acquire the franchisor rights.
So then what made you kind of approach the business with this skin in the game philosophy, rather than where most people want to just pay me my rate and whatever happens, happens?
Yeah, I mean, we looked, especially a partner who had been in franchising 20 plus years. The whole idea of an FSO was always very attractive, but there were really two camps that we saw when we started Raintree in terms of what options were out there in FSOs for franchise brands to choose. And if you really did the research, we're just talking now about the small group of FSOs that really perform, that have the track record. And deliver the results. I'm not talking about many of the other options out there. And within those two groups, you had again, some great reputable companies that are still in existence today and have a lot of respect for. But some of those wanted equity up to 30% of the franchise business just for the rights to partner with them or get their services as FSO. And so we weren't terribly excited about giving a third of the company away just to have a sales and marketing arm added to the franchise. On the other side of it, there's some pretty exorbitant retainers. We were seeing $6,000, $8,000, $10,000 a month just again for the rights to work with them, not including any of the marketing that we would have had to spend, not including the commissions we would have had to pay. So we saw, two spectrums, both expensive in different ways, and thought there's probably a better way to do it where it's a little more, again, pay for performance driven. That was a little bit more fairer to the brand. And that's how we established Raintree. We don't take any brand equity. But we have a commission fee and just a small retainer, a very small skin in the game fee, about a fifth of what I just mentioned. And that's how we've set it up. And again, it's worked well for 8 years now. We've had basically the same structure from day one as we have today.
So now you mentioned the variety of franchise that you work with. I would imagine if you're taking this approach, you're pretty selective who you partner with. You must have to feel pretty confident that you're going to be able to deliver.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And I think right now it's busy, a little busy at this time of year as brands kind of really start to put the foot on the gas and really think, how am I going to get above the noise and find franchisees and actually hit my franchise sales goals this year? And we see a little bit more of that activity at the front end of the year, but I'm probably getting anywhere from 5 to 10 franchise brand applications a week right now. And the reality is, on average, for the last 2 years at least, we've only been taking one brand a quarter. So it's 98% of the brands we just can't help, or we're not a fit for them. And that's okay. And we like the fact that, it's a very careful decision on both ends, because when we partner with a brand, you said it yourself before, Lee, we become an extension of that brand. It's a full partnership and it's typically a long partnership. The first brand that we signed 8 years ago in Wagon Wash Pet Care is still with us today. And that's what we want for all of our brands.
And how are you seeing the franchise business change through this pandemic? Have you noticed anything different? Are different brands kind of more attractive or less attractive?
Yeah, of course. So obviously food and restaurants slowed a little. Luckily, I think at least half our food brands hit their goals, and that was not easy to do, but a few of them did not. And that's just a very difficult problem to overcome to have somebody want to invest, $200,000-$500,000 plus in a business that they're not sure if they can actually open right now or not. And so for that reason, certainly the restaurant industry and franchise sales had slowed last year. The good news is we're seeing it pick up really quickly right now, especially in the brand that I own in Voodoo Brewery. On the service side, the lower investment service models, they performed really well throughout 2020 and throughout the pandemic. We had record-breaking years for a couple of those brands, as did the pet brands that we have. 2 of those brands had record-breaking years. Quite considerably so, actually. So pets and services has never been a better time to be one of those franchise brands. And food had a tough year. But I'll say this, I've tried to coach a few of our brands, and luckily, most of them have stayed in the game and have continued to market because they've got full pipelines now. And I think that where it's going for food franchises and why they should be optimistic, and why, we got involved in Voodoo Brewery, is I just see such an opportunity in food franchising now. You've got, unfortunately, mom and pop food restaurants of all types closing to this day. And it's terrible, but there's been over 100,000 of them close already. The other side of that is you're going to have enormous opportunities in real estate if you're looking to open a food franchise or you're a food franchisor. We're already seeing A and B locations at C pricing. And it's only, from what we can see in the market, it's only going to get more affordable. That space is only going to be more of a leases market. And so that's going to have food franchise P&Ls more healthy than we think we've ever seen them, as brands come in and secure these locations with fewer competition too. in terms of competing food brands next to them and around now. So, I could go on and on about interest rates. There's just a long list of reasons why, the answer for you, Lee, is, food was tough last year, but I couldn't be more bullish on food certainly the second half of 2021.
Now, are you seeing any other trends in franchising? I've seen, because I do this show, I've seen a lot of, I don't know what the industry term is, but I call it like kind of clusters around like maybe home services where they get the client acquisition of one brand, but then they can share that client with other complementary services. Are you seeing more of that kind of clustering of franchises around like the home, say? And I haven't seen it yet, and maybe there is, but I would imagine there's also a possibility of clusters around business services as well.
Yeah, I had to have seen that in the home services sector, and certainly when there's parent brands involved that own multiple brands of a similar nature. Certainly, we're seeing a lot of that. Now, we don't have any of that really at Raintree. Part of being selective is we really only take one brand per segment that's truly differentiated. That's part of our thing, is we've got to make sure that in just one sentence, we can very clearly and quickly articulate to the candidates how this is different and why it's potentially got an advantage, a brand advantage. So for both those reasons, we don't have anything clustered, either business services or home services, but certainly in home services, we're seeing more and more of that. And it seems to make sense for those brands that are doing it.
And then let's talk a little bit about your work with Voodoo. What got you excited enough to where you're like, I'm going to write them a check and really start working with them and grow this thing? What did you like about the Voodoo model that separated itself from other, kind of craft beer breweries out there?
Yeah, it's a good question. So there's a few phases to how that came about. And the first phase was just looking at Voodoo Brewery as a potential partner and a client here at Raintree. And what we liked initially was just, again, it was very well differentiated. There'd been some big corporate-y kind of chain franchises in the beer segment over the last decade, but nothing niche, locally based, nothing like Voodoo Brewery. So we at Raintree, in terms of selling franchises, saw that as really a big opportunity. There was nothing really like it out there. Fast forward, we went through the process, evaluated the economics. It all seemed to tick the boxes from a franchise development partnership perspective, and we moved forward on that front. It wasn't really till we got out there and met Matteo and Jake and saw the operation, certainly tried the product, saw the kind of cult following it had there in Pennsylvania and certainly along the East Coast, and really started to see the magic of it and had our eyes kind of wide open. And at that point, we got really excited. I think once, COVID hit and Voodoo had to shut down a number of the 8 locations, certainly there was an opportunity to come in financially and help to help with the franchise side. And why we saw that as a good idea was everything that I just mentioned. Again, you take a brand that we haven't really seen a brand with a product following like this. Like, you look under the hood and you look at how great this liquid is. They've been consistently rated a top 50 brewery internationally over the last 10 years. You see that they've never really spent $1 on marketing, but put up a couple of Facebook posts and they've got 40,000 followers on Facebook. You see that the first franchisee that they awarded, opens his location and has 6,000 Facebook followers. These sound like little, seemingly insignificant things, but all very big clues to us on how special this is and how crazy we would be to miss out on the opportunity to partner with them as a franchisor and help lead them on an operations side too. So there was just a lot to like, Lee, and we were just really thankful they were up for the partnership and more than anything, and I didn't say this, really great group of guys. I often say, when we're looking at brands at Raintree, it's important to make sure that you're betting on the jockey, maybe even more so than the horse. And when you meet this group of guys, the culture's there. They've given equity to all the employees there. It's employee owned. They're just great people, and we thought, we love partnering with great people. So a lot to answer there, Lee, but a lot that we liked.
And then any advice for kind of maybe emerging franchisors out there to help them kind of in their growth? Is there some things that you see that you're like, why do these people make this mistake over and over again? Like, don't do that. Like you're doing this every day for multiple brands. Any advice you can give folks out there that can maybe ease some of their learning curve?
Yeah, I think, the biggest mistake I see younger brands make is coming into franchising undercapitalized. I think that, folks think that you can get in and recruit franchise owners on a budget of, $1,000 or $2,000 a month. And, you've got to look at it from a macro perspective. And this is how I kind of coach them. When you sell a franchise, say it's, an average franchise of $250,000 investment for the prospect, but, they're paying, $40,000 up front. Over the course of 10 years, if the AUV is, $1 million, if it's a restaurant and they're paying 5%, what we're seeing is what the average ticket price and all that is anywhere between, often $250 up to $1 million per franchisee that you recruit over the 10-year partnership. And that's the value of your sale ticket price. And if you think that, $1,000 or $2,000, so a budget of, $12,000 to $25,000 to recruit a number of those types of sales is going to cut it, that's where a lot of them come in and just kind of eventually run on fumes till they run out. And most brands you'll see, try 2-3 years underfunded, and the majority of them don't break through and don't find the franchisees they need to start building the brand to bring in capital from those franchisees to help grow it. And that's why I think you see, there, of course, there's 300 plus new franchise brands every year that join, but it's also, you'll see an output or an exit of 300 brands that just don't make it. And that's usually the biggest thing. So if you're going to franchise and you're going to recruit franchisees, make sure that you capitalize, make sure that you've saved with your existing locations, make sure that you've really got the funding in place. And it can be, we coach some brands, you can get away with $50,000 to $75,000 in recruitment costs for a new franchisor if all the pieces are in place, if it's a lower investment, if the economics are really strong, if you've got great validation, it's possible. But we really like to say, look, you've got to really try and shoot for $100,000 in recruitment, in marketing costs, if you really want to make this work. That's the biggest one I see.
And then is there kind of a number that you like to see for an emerging brand to say, okay, they have the escape velocity, this thing has a higher probability of making it?
It varies because, we work with such different brands from, $50,000 service brands to $1 million plus restaurants. So it really does vary brand to brand.
And then for you, what's the most rewarding part of the job? Is it getting the new brand up and running? Is it getting that new brand more sales? Like where's the fun for you?
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting question. I think on the front end, I love what I do every day because, again, especially right now when there's 5 to 10 brands that I'm doing a deep dive with every week, just listening to those stories, listening to how they made their business successful initially, or how the franchise has got to be where it's got to be, and hearing their story. And you get to hear some pretty inspiring stuff, and you get to hear, people's stories of grit and how they fought through and made it. And, they're the less than 1% of folks out there that get to this point and find success with their business. And just being able to hear those stories, to me, I truly enjoy that. It's very, very cool. When we do partner with them on the other side, I do think it's seeing, especially young brands. Now we've worked with big brands and really helped them. Like, Jamba Juice had almost negative growth for 2 years before they partnered with Raintree. And then we went from 0 to 100 franchises sold in a year, and helped with the acquisition, their 9-figure acquisition. That's very fun, and that's great. Those types of stories with bigger brands we've helped, but it's truly the emerging brands that's more rewarding. When you see, brands like Footprints Floors that we work with who start with just 5 territories and just not even 2 years later have them over 100 territories and 50 franchisees, and brands like Houndstown, similar story, that are at 60 a couple of years later. You just see the excitement in those founders. You see how you've really had an impact, not only on helping them and changing their lives, but all those franchisees who have made good decisions in joining those brands. And we know they're good brands because we vet we vet the heck out of them before they come to Raintree too, and we hear the stories and we see the numbers to make sure they're successful. So, not only are you truly helping change the life of the founders, but all those folks you bring in. And that's pretty cool when you stop and think about that every day too.
Yeah, I think that the franchisees are they become the heroes in their communities. They're the ones that are then funding activities for kids and high school students, and they're making a bigger mark in the world, as opposed to where a lot of them were just like a cog in the machine in some corporate job that they weren't really appreciated. And all of a sudden they get into a local market as a franchisee and they're making a difference in their community. I mean, it's I would think more rewarding work for them as well.
Absolutely. And even on the family dynamic too, that's the big one that I see is, you see folks that are just dejected 10, 20 years, less, whatever it is of corporate America, getting up at 7 a.m., getting home 6 p.m., missing all of their kids' events. It's that corporate grind is tough on a modern family life. When you see folks get into certainly some semi-absentee businesses, but even regular businesses where they control when and how, and if they need to duck away to their kids' games or a recital or whatever it is, you hear those stories, and I hear them a lot too. And you just see the excitement and the thankfulness and how grateful those franchisees are just to take their freedom back and give their family, a new start. And that for me is everything. It's more than the money they make. You just can't buy that.
Right. That's the quality of life that they've been searching for their whole lives a lot of times.
Exactly.
Now, if somebody wanted to learn more, have a more substantive conversation with you or somebody on your team, if you're a potential emerging franchisor that needs help, or maybe even a franchisee that wants to check out some of the brands you partnered with, is there a website?
Yeah, we're at RaintreeSales.com.
Well, Brent, thank you so much for sharing your story, and congratulations on all the success.
Thanks, Lee. Thanks so much for chatting today.
All right, this is Lee Cantor. We will see you all next time on Franchise Marketing Radio.